All right, today marks 2 weeks today until Ford versus Ferrari comes out. I cannot wait. Carroll Shelby being played by Matt Damon, Ken Miles being played by Christian Bale. Could you ask for a better pair? These guys are awesome actors and they're going to deliver a super awesome performance. Ford versus Ferrari, one of the biggest rivalries in automotive history. Okay? That in itself alone is going to be stupendous. But you couple two class A, grade A, whatever you want to call it, high hitting, heavy hitting actors from Hollywood. These guys are like, one's a serious method actor, Christian Bale. The other one is a chameleon. He can play any part. It doesn't matter if he's playing a spy or he's playing a freaking scientist or he's playing an astronaut or a deep sea diver. This guy can play anything. Matt Damon. Yeah. Matt Damon, which everybody freaking knows is responsible for one of the best movies of all time, Good Will Hunting. All right. Super performance there. Christian Bale. I mean, this guy's been doing, I say kid, right? Because I remember watching him when he was a kid making movies. And he delivered performances back then that were insane. Fast forward all these years, he's done all kinds of different movies. He's even played Batman and brought a whole new twist on it to where he's actually taken the top position of Michael Keaton being my favorite Batman right away. So that's no easy task to do because Michael Keaton's an awesome actor. But Christian Bale just really appealed to the Batman series as far as Year One and Dark Knight. So I'll tell you what, I'm stoked for this movie. This movie is going to be excellent. Now, for those of you who don't know, for those of you who don't have a clue, as opposed to those of you who do, I'm going to break it down for you, okay? Ford. Back in the 60s, Ferrari was looking at selling to Ford. Ford, this is the short of it, guys. Ford said, we're going to go ahead and fold you under the umbrella of Ford Automotive Company because we want to get into the exotic racing and car scene. Ferrari was all about it. Enzo was like, yep, no problem, Ford. I think it was Henry Ford II. He's like, yeah, no problem. He's like, we'll go ahead and sell. So Ford, knowing that Ferrari's coming, they kind of had a handshake deal, a discussion, starts prepping its entire company to bring Ferrari in under its umbrella. That means retrofitting things, change-ups in the structure and whatnot for management. They even told Enzo Ferrari that he could stay in Italy and handle all the things that are Ferrari. He'd still be one of their prominent figures, but he'd just be under the umbrella of Ford, which is a great, great opportunity for any automotive company that's smaller that's going to be picked up by a powerhouse like Ford Motor Company. So Ford starts retrofitting things, changing things up in its lineup, and all of a sudden at the very last minute, Enzo Ferrari's like, yeah, no thanks, we don't want to be part of your company, and he walks away, insulting Ford Motor Company, not to mention every American out there. And literally, Henry Ford II was insulted big time and said, you know what, payback's I'm in my office, so payback's a bitch. So what does Ford do? Ford says, you know what, we're going to go and we're going to kick their ass at the place that Ferrari holds the most coveted and deepest place in their heart, at Le Mans. So Ford gets with Carroll Shelby, who's doing wonders with their Cobra program, which they took from kind of a similar design of the Sunbeam Tiger, which is a UK British car. Excellent car too, by the way. So Shelby had some excellent success with that, and Ford goes to him and says, hey, what can you do for us? We want to kick Ferrari's ass. And Shelby, being the snake that he was, he was like, you know what? Yeah, let's do it, you know? He's like, I'd like to tear up some Ferrari ass. So anyway, they go over to Le Mans. Now, they take over their GT, the Ford GT. Everybody knows it. They just came out again in, 2017, the Ford GT. You know, what is it, 40 years later and all that stuff? We'll talk about that in a second. So Ford takes over their GT models, right? Literally gets first, second, and third. Okay? First, second, and third. Well, Ferrari is a little ego hurt and says, well, that's because you're not using all Ford parts. So all Ford components, Henry Ford's like, are you kidding me? So he's like, oh, okay. And that wasn't good enough, right? So Ford goes back to the drawing board and completely redesigns an entirely built by Ford car using nothing but Ford components except for one, which is a windshield wiper off of a, I think it was a 737 or something like that, a Boeing. Actually, I think it was before a 737. Anyway, they use a aircraft windshield wiper that is designed for passenger jets on their car. Guys, why is this important? Because everybody talks about supercars today and how 200 miles an hour is such a big deal and all that stuff. I'm not kidding you when I say this. Ford did this 40 years ago with their Ford race car. 212 miles an hour, or was it 220? I can't remember. It was somewhere around that ballpark. So 200 miles an hour for Ford was like nothing 40 years ago. All these cars today, your Pagani Zonda, your Corvette Z06s, your 812 Superfast, your Corvette C8. Everybody's like, oh, it goes 200 miles an hour. Ford did this 40 years ago, guys. 40 years ago. I'm 41 years old. That means they were doing this, and I was actually 50 years ago. They were doing this before I was even born, hitting 200 miles an hour. They didn't have all the electromagnetic suspension and the dynamic steering and all the other jazz. They did it mechanically. 200 miles an hour in a car that weighed half a ton, okay, or less. And everybody's talking about this power to weight ratio stuff now, right? They're talking, oh, 200 miles an hour, you need aero and power to weight ratio. Like it's such a big deal. Using these ridiculously expensive computers to design a car when a bunch of good old boys from Detroit got together and they put it together in 90 days and hit 200 plus miles an hour. Now, first, second, and third in 1967, 1968, I believe, they went back over there to Le Mans with one car, kicking the snot out of Ferrari, and even finishing 30 miles ahead on Le Mans. 30 miles. That is huge. It's not a to the end race where you're just coming in close. It's not even within a car length or 2 car lengths or 3 car lengths. We're talking 30 miles. 30 miles. That was like literally salt, wound. Rub salt into the wound on Ferrari, because that's exactly what they did. You insulted us back in the day. That's what Ford said. You told us we couldn't win in 1967 unless it was our own components, even though we took first, second, and third. 68, we kicked your ass again by 30 miles. And then guess what? Ford said, we mopped the floor with you. We're taking a hike. We're taking a hiatus. And you know what? 40, 50 years later, Ferrari started talking all this nonsense again. Ferrari started saying, you know what? Ford hasn't had a win at Le Mans forever. Don't even compete, and they're probably not even able to get in the game. Guess what? Ford comes back with the new Ford GT, which was a secret project for like 3 or 4 years, maybe 5. I'm not sure. But it was so secret that only like less than a dozen people knew about it in Ford. Had to sign statements saying that they could be held under legal action if they talk about it. So they go to Le Mans with a V6. A V6 and kick Ferrari's ass again. I mean, it's one of the greatest automotive stories of all time. So Ferrari kicks that ass again, and then guess what they do? They walk away and say, we did it again. That's Ford Motor Company. That's American history. And that's why we do what we do. That's just a little bit about it. I cannot wait, guys, for this 2-week marker today, November 15th, 2 weeks from today. Ford vs. Ferrari comes out, and yours truly is going to be at the theater to make sure that we, 1, support it, 2, relive that history, and 3, share that history with the younger generations, because they don't know, guys. They don't know. They're too busy doing this. And don't get me wrong, without you guys checking away on your phones or checking on your computers, I wouldn't have a channel. But at the same time, pull yourselves away and don't forget to see what's around you, because you might just be part of history and you don't even know it. With that being said, this is George from StreetCulture.US saying, I will see you guys on the road.